Доброго дня, шановні студенти. Дозвольте привітати Ваше Височество, пана посла Індії в Україні Маноджа Кумара Бхарти. Сьогодні вам буде запропонована лекція, яку пан посол вам прочитає «Індія та світ». Що надзвичайно приємно, що пан посол має і технічну освіту, він за першою освітою електротехнік, а потім все його життя пов'язане з роботою в посольствах. І з 2015 року він є надзвичайний і повноважний посол Індії в Україні. До цього він працював послом в багатьох інших країнах, але перед Україною він був посол в Республіці Білорусія. То дозвольте надати йому слово. Please.
Good morning. Dobre utro. My dear students, I would first like to thank the Vice Rectors, Mr. Kuruchuk and Mr. Ponomariev, for being present here today and also being the host for my visit to this lovely and magnificent institute, university. I am actually quite amazed to see this hall as well, which shows itself that it has a very old heritage. And I am actually amazed that this institute started all the way in the 19th century in 1898. I am also amazed that there are 23,000 students studying here. I am myself an engineer, and I studied from the best institute in India, which is called the IIT Kanpur. But we had not more than 9,000 students. That included people from PhD and every course. But to have an institute of 23,000 students is amazing. You all should be very proud of your own university. But before I go on to my lecture, I'd like to ask all of you, do you understand my English? Do you need a translator? All of you are comfortable with my English? Good, thank you very much, because it gives me more freedom to speak and less time to complete what I want to say. Now, I represent a country called India. I am sure all of you know about India. I have just visited some of your museums, and once again I was extremely happy to see what scientific inventions have come out of your institute. They are phenomenal, especially in the area of space, aviation, satellite. Whatever I saw, it is truly wonderful. So I congratulate all of you as well for once again studying in an institute with such a vast and famous history. But I am sure many of you know that the Indian past is much older than the 100 or 150 years of institute that we are talking of right now. And India had some wonderful inventions right from the beginning. Generally, I do not speak when I talk of India in the way I am going to do today, because when I talk to people about India, I go on to speak about what India has to offer to Ukraine today in terms of trade, commerce, etc., etc. But I would like to start my presentation in the similar fashion which I do earlier. To begin with, how much time do I have? 1 hour?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that I have 1 hour to talk, and I hope by the end of this 1 hour, you will yourself be amazed at what India has got in the past and what it has today. First of all, I am going to touch upon 3 basic things in my presentation. One, what is that makes India unique? Every country is unique. Ukraine is a very unique country. I am extremely happy to be in Ukraine. But what are the uniquenesses of India? One. Second, what are the ancient treasures of India? Scientific, mathematical. I am talking only of the scientific and mathematical treasures. And third, what are the modern day developments of India, which are in the field of science, technology, and pure sciences and engineering. If I do not get time to touch upon in detail in my last section, then I will leave that space for questions and answers. And I will encourage all of you, being students of engineering, be little careful in noting down the points which are not clear to you, so that later on you can ask me those questions. Believe me, 30 years ago I was in your seats. I was also a student like you in an engineering college. So I know what you feel like, and I know what you will miss if you do not ask questions. To begin with, it's here. Okay. This is the map of India in the world map. Who can tell me what is so unique about India right from this map? Can anyone tell me what is the unique feature about this country right from this map? Anyone? Yes?
Just located between Africa and Eurasia.
That of course is a geographical fact. That is a geographical fact, that it is between Africa and eastern side. What I am trying to draw your attention to is that India is the only country in this world after which an ocean has been named, Indian Ocean. There is no other country after which an ocean has been named. Why? Why is that? Right from ancient times, when the entire world, where is the light thing? There's no light? There's no light?
Там света нет?
Okay. Okay. So you will see that right from ancient ages, whether you take the land route from east to west or the sea route from east to west, India comes in the picture. India was unavoidable, and that makes it almost unique right from the day when humanity started. And if you see India today is not just a country. It is like a continent. Why? In the north, you have the world's highest mountain range. Then you have a huge Gangetic plain, which is very fertile. Then you have an extremely large area of high plateau and about 7,500 kilometers of coastline. It has every feature of a continent. And when you see the next picture, you will see it is actually like a continent. We have 29 different states right now. And each state has a different history, different language, different literature, different cuisine, and different culture. And each of these states are almost a country living together in the name of one country called India. I keep saying what European Union wants to become in future with 28 different states, be a unified political entity. India has been practicing this right from 70 years before, since 1947. The kind of diversity that India shows, you will see it's amazing. The kind of people who live together. I will come back to this. But let's begin with its population. In 2011, our general census, Indian population was 1.22 billion. Today, we say that India has 1.25 billion people, 1,250 million people. Interestingly, I say that people just say that India has this huge population, but they do not realize the true extent of this population. What does it mean? We add 22 million people every year into our population. 22 million. That means one full Australia is added every year into our population. Or half of Ukraine. Half of Ukraine gets added to Indian population every year. And people in Ukraine and all over the world do not understand. They just kind of sometimes laugh at it, sometimes they ignore it, sometimes they feel bad about it. But I keep telling people in Ukraine, look at India, look at Indian population and see how it can use you, how you can use it to your advantage. How do you take use of this huge population? Let's go to this slide and start with the population. We have 1.25 billion people today, out of which 30% are as rich as Americans or Europeans. 375 million people in India are as rich as Americans or Europeans, and they tour the whole world as tourists. And Indians are the world's largest spenders as tourists. They spend a huge amount of money when they go out. And even if you take 0.01% of this population, you will have 37,500 tourists if we want these tourists in Ukraine. Just 0.01% of the tourist population in India, people who are rich. And even if, on an average, only $1,000 are spent by these Indian tourists, Ukraine is going to earn $37.5 million just from Indian tourists. Let's go to another example of this population. 1.25 billion people. Almost 65% people in India are of age less than 35. 65% of Indian population is 810 million people. Imagine a country with 810 million young population, less than 35 years of age. That is why India is known as the world's youngest country. And all these 810 million people need to be given education, skills, and jobs. We have a huge amount of institutes and universities of our own in India. However, they are not enough because there are just too many people. There are just too many young people. And that is why countries like Ukraine are coming into the picture. I was asking your Vice Rector, out of 23,000 students, how many are foreign students? He says, very few. I said, do you want foreign students or not? He said, yes. Why not? India is the customer for you. If you want 100 students, it is like a sand particle in the ocean. If you want 1,000, it will be a bigger sand particle, because just there are too many young people who want to become engineers, who want to be educated in India, and they do not get enough opportunity. Why not tap them? Even today, we have 6,100 Indian students studying in Ukraine. On an average, each student spends $5,000 US on tuition fee, lodging and boarding, personal expenses. That means even today, Ukraine is earning nearly $30.5 million just by providing education to Indian students. And in my opinion, this number can increase at least 4 to 5 times. Imagine what kind of income Ukraine can earn only from the young people in India, young education needed people in India. Once again, another example. We have 1.25 billion people, and almost the entire population eats vegetarian food. You must understand this. I am a non-vegetarian, but it does not mean that I eat meat, chicken, or fish in the day, in the night. No. It only means that generally I eat vegetarian food, but if I am giving fish or chicken, I will take it, I will eat it, I will not say no. But there are almost 50% people in India who do not eat meat at all. But out of the rest 50% who call themselves non-vegetarian, they generally eat vegetarian food. And for a vegetarian, the source of protein is pulses, bubova or chichivitsa or whatever you call it here. That is the source of protein for all these vegetarian people. That means we have a huge requirement of protein. We eat it in the day, in the night, every time. But people, farmers, government here doesn't realize that India produces only 9 million tons of pulses, whereas it requires 19 million tons. So we have a shortfall of 10 million tons. And we use about 14 different kinds of pulses. Only one of these 14 different kind of pulses we imported from Canada last year, 500,000 tons. If we can import such a huge quantity of pulses all the way from Canada, why not from Ukraine? Ukraine is less than half the distance from Canada. What I am trying to tell you is that the Indian population should be taken as an example to take benefit from. How do you benefit from this population? Today's economy in India is growing. That means requirement of people is growing in terms of housing, transport, infrastructure, engineering goods. Why can't Ukraine take a big pie of this requirement in India? In many forms. So that is one point which I wanted all of you to realize. Next, we come to this concept of India being a democracy. India is world's biggest democracy. And you know why? Because in 2014, when we had our last elections, 815 million people were registered as voters. 815 million people were registered as voters. You know what is the second largest democracy in the world? What is the second largest democracy in the world? America. And American population is 350 million only. The number of voters is just about 200 or maximum 220 million. We have 4 times that number. 4 times larger than American democracy. No country in the world can match the democracy which is existing in India. And then we live in such a huge, diverse country, unique in terms of diversity. How? Take this example. We have 22 official languages. 22 official languages mentioned in the Constitution of India. You can see this currency note, which is 50 rupees, written in Hindi, in English, and in 13 different scripts, saying 50 rupees, 50 rupees, 50 rupees. They are all different scripts, and all are Indian scripts. We have 22 official languages. There are countries where if you have 2 languages, people kill each other. We live with 22 official languages. There are 325 different dialects, languages, 1652 dialects, but there are 22 official languages. And if you see, as I was telling you, if you take different states, Tamil Nadu has Tamil as language, Kerala has Malayalam as language, Kannada is the language of Karnataka, Maharashtra has Marathi, Gujarat has Gujarati, West Bengal has Bengali. All different countries as if are living together, which had different literature, different language. Not only this, the cuisines are different. The food that we eat in the north part of India is not eaten in the south part of India. The food practices are different. So you can imagine how it is to be in a country like India and how it is to govern a country like India. Whenever the name India comes in front of you, the first image in your mind should be of this kind of diversity. India is an amazingly diverse country. And that is a fact which makes us strong and which is also borne by the fact that we have a rich history about which I will tell you a little later. We have 5,600 dailies, 15,000 journals, etc., in all different languages. We have the 4th largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity. I know you are engineering students, you may not know what purchasing power parity means, so I'll explain in a very simple example. If you have $100, the kind of goods and services you can buy from these $100 in USA, in America, the same goods and services you can purchase in India in $25. So in India, the purchasing power parity is a multiplier of 4. Different countries have different multipliers. Indian GDP today is about $2 trillion. $2 trillion. And when you multiply it by 4, it becomes around $8 million, and then it becomes the 4th largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity. India is also the largest English-speaking country in the world. Without any doubt, I can say that at least 40% of Indian population is comfortable with English language. They speak, read, understand English language very well. 40% of Indian population is almost 500 million people. 500 million people in India are comfortable with English language. England, total population is about 75 million. America, total population is 350 million. Even then, they are much less than the Indian population that is comfortable and understands English language. And India also has today's world's second largest number of engineers and scientists. Mark Twain said, you can read, can you read this out in Russian, Vadim?
В плане религии и культуры Индия единственный миллионер. Существует только одна Индия, земля грез и романтики. Единственная страна, которую каждый человек хотел бы увидеть, и увидев однажды, даже мельком, не променял бы этот миг на зрелище всего остального земного шара. Индия – колыбель человеческой расы, мать истории, бабушка легенды и прабабушка традиций. Наши самые ценные и наиболее важные из материалов в истории человечества хранятся только в Индии. Марк Твен.
Yeah. And then we move on to Einstein. And Einstein says we owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no scientific discovery could have been made. Einstein says this. Why? Why is people like Einstein or Mark Twain so upbeat about India? And if we want to understand this, you need to go back to our past, India's past, because any scientist, when it reaches its height, he becomes a philosopher, almost a philosopher. And when he becomes a philosopher in his own skill, he understands that India's past had a role to play in that understanding. And I'm going to show you how. Because the moment we talk of Indians' past, we talk of Vedas. And you'll be surprised that Veda is also a word in Ukrainian language, which means to know. Veda. Yeah? Veda.
Веды.
Veda.
Веды.
Another word, jnana, I think. Jnania. Znania is knowledge. The Sanskrit word for knowledge is jnana, which is, if you translate it in English language, write in Roman word, it is exactly like jnana. So it is amazing how our cultures have also got ancient roots. And when we talk of Vedas, Vedas are very difficult to understand, because people who read the Vedas, in the first reading it looks like a nonsensical text. We pray to this, we pray to this river, we pray to this person, we pray to this tree, this kind of things. It looks very nonsensical. But scientists today believe that the Vedas were written in coded language, and they are trying to decode that language through computers and other things now. A lot of research is going on today to decode the language of Vedas. The thing is, it is not only Vedas. There are a lot of other documents which were produced. And if you see, there are different specific treatises on each aspect of human life, including astrology and astronomy, rituals, phonetics, rules and regulation, karma, mathematics, Ayurveda, and how to make love, Kama Sutra. All these specific treatises were considered part of human life and important for survival of humans. And they had written in great detail all aspects of these things. I'll give you an example. Astrology. You know, I wish that I had a blackboard here or something to write on, You know, without that it's very difficult to make it. I need a blackboard. But anyway, you know, Western astrology is very simple. Suppose this is how the earth is moving around the table. Sun is here. This galactic platform is divided in 12 different sections, and each one is given in the name of a constellation. Pisces, Aries, Aquarius, Cancer, I don't know. There are 12 different astrological signs, zodiac signs. Suppose you were born when Earth was here. Then you draw a line from this point to the sun, and whichever zodiac sign this line falls in, that becomes your zodiac sign. Very simple. So then people say, I was born in January, Earth was here, then sun is there, and this is my zodiac sign. I was born in July, so the sun is there, this is my zodiac sign. Western astrology is very simple. As compared to this, Indian astrology not only takes care of the position of the sun, but also the position of 7 different planets: Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn, Jupiter. 5,000 years ago, people in India knew not only about the solar system and all the planets, but also about their rate of rotation around the sun. How did they know this? I am an engineering student. I tried to understand this, and I wanted to learn astrology. I was amazed that they had the period of rotation of each of these planets around the sun, and they could exactly pinpoint the position of each of these planets at any point of time throughout the year. Even today, it is very difficult to do. But Indians knew this 5,000 years ago. That basically means, if you see in Europe, till the time almost 16th, 17th century, if anybody said that Earth is not the center of the universe, his head was chopped off. Isn't it? In India, 5,000 years ago, people knew the existence of solar system and all the planets and all the universe. Not only this, if you go to another example, India had actually discovered zero. And I hope you understand what is the significance of zero today. Because the way you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 99, 100, 999, 1000, the positioning of zero, the decimal system, was a gift of Indians to the world. And because of this, Einstein says that without this, no scientific discovery was possible. Because the only other numerical system in the world was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the Roman numerals. And you cannot do any mathematical calculation with the help of the Roman numerals unless you had these decimal numbers. And one of the ways to understand how this decimal system has been in practice in the Vedic time, I will give you this example. Oh, let me go to this first. I'll show you the mathematics of Vedic time. In ancient time, how people used to do mathematics in India. If I give you this number, 99,985, and ask you to multiply it with 99,996, how much time will you take by doing longhand? If you are asked to do it longhand, how much time will you take? It will take quite some time, right? At least a couple of minutes. All right? I can do it in 10 seconds. And you will see this. You just take a base with so many digits. I have taken the base of 100,000 because it is 5 zeros and 5 numbers are there. The first number is only 15 less than 100,000. All right? The second number is only 4 less than 100,000. You only have to multiply 15 times 4. That becomes 60. You fill up the rest of the place to comply with 5 zeros. 0, 0, 0, 6, 0. Clear? All right? Now, you either deduct 4 from this number or 15 from this number. In both cases, you will get this number. This is the answer. 99981000060. Check in your calculator. Please check. This is the answer. Who has checked? I will not go forward unless you tell me that it is correct. Correct? This is correct. This was the kind of mathematics, and I wish I had a board. I would have explained to you in algebraic term how it is done. It's very simple. It's a very simple algebra that is done, that is behind this kind of calculation. There is another corollary to this. If you take this number 236,741 and you want to multiply with all 9s, it is simpler than the earlier thing. You only have to reduce this number by 1 and then it will become 236740. You write it down here, which is written here but it is not clear. Yeah, 236740, and start deducting from here. 9 minus 2 is 7, 9 minus 3 is 6, 9 minus 6 is 3, 9 minus 7 is 2, 9 minus 4 is 5, and 9 minus 0 is 9. This is the answer. 236740, 763,259. This is the answer of this multiplication. Check. Do you want to check? Yeah, it's correct. This is the kind of mathematics. And I don't have. There is a Sanskrit shlok which says, if you want to square a number, reduce it by the difference and add it with the square of the difference. What does it mean? If you have to square 998, if you have to make a square of this number, then it is 2 less than 1000. You reduce 998 by 2 further, it becomes 996. And square the 2, which becomes 4. So write 004. The square of 998 is 996004. You check this. The square of 998 is 996004. Who has checked this? Yes. Correct? This is the kind of mathematics Indians used to do 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago. Now, there is a shlok in Rig Veda. As I told you, Rig Veda looks very nonsensical in the first glance. This shlok says, we pray to Lord Sun, which travels at a speed of 2,200 yojan aken nimishardhane. Basically it means, we pray to Lord Sun, which travels at a speed of 2,202 yojan in half a nimish. Yojan is a unit of distance and nimish is a unit of time. If you convert this nimish and yojan in kilometers per second, you get this value, which is exactly the speed of light. In Rig Veda time, people in India knew the speed of light. And it is not that I am making it up, it is written in Rig Veda. This whole shlok is written in Rig Veda, which is known to Indians since 5,000 years ago. How did they know this? How did they know this? Do you have any answer? I'll come back to this little later and I'll show you how. Let's go to the next slide. Tulsidas was a well-known poet of 16th century. Very common man, was not very well educated, he was not an engineer, he was just a common man. But he wrote a book in the praise of a monkey god in the epic of Ramayana, Hanuman. He wrote about his life. And in his life, he said, I mean, Hanuman is supposed to be amazing person. He could change his shape, he could increase his size, he could run faster than sound or light or whatever. It was amazing character. So describing him, Tulsidas says that he took the sun as a fruit and went to Yug Sahasra Yojan. Yug Sahasra Yojan. That was the distance, and he went there and he took it as a fruit, thinking that the sun is a fruit. Now, imagine a very common man is writing this, I am sure because it was in the prevalent common knowledge. Look at this calculation. Yug means 12,000 in Indian Sanskrit way of numbers. Sahasra is 1,000. It's a Sanskrit name for 1,000. Yojan is 8 miles, which is 12.8 kilometers. So when Tulsidas says the sun's distance from earth is Yug Sahasra Yojan, it means it is 153.6 million kilometers. And the modern calculation says that the distance is 149 million kilometers. It was so close. Sun, distance to the sun was explained in a normal poem which is so much accurate. The question is, I told you about astrology, I told you about these numbers. A similar thing is about Ayurveda. The Ayurvedic doctor touches your pulse, and he not only knows what ailment you have, he can also tell you bark of which tree or root of which tree or leaf of which tree you should take, and you will be completely all right. How is this knowledge possible? And let me now diverge from my normal lecture. This is what I said, I will be diverging from a normal lecture. Okay, let me take this. There is another shlok, which I told you Vedas were written in codes, in different codes. So there is a shlok here, which is in general, it's a praise to Lord Krishna or Lord Shiva. Anything can be said. But if you use that code according to which each alphabet is transcribed to a numerical, then all this translates to this. And this is the exact value of pi up to 32 decimal places. Exact value of pi up to 32 decimal places. If people in India knew about value of pi, what does it mean? Pi is what? Ratio of circumference to the diameter. That basically means that they knew the entire geometry. And we say that geometry was invented by, Pythagoras or whatever in the 3rd century BC or 2nd century BC. Indians knew the entire geometry throughout the Vedic time. Because there are certain things which people used to do without the modern systems of calculator, which even today if I give you, you will not be able to do. If I ask you that I am giving you a rectangle of x and y dimension, and I want you to give me a circle of the same area, can you do it? No, I can't do it, and I know you can't do it. But people in ancient India used to do it very, very regularly. They had they had ways to do it, mathematical tools to do it. Now, let me go back to this, let's start that film. But before you film, just come to the screen and stop at Flatland. I am trying to give you an answer as to what could have happened. What is the reason why Indians knew so much in ancient times? Problem is, unless, as scientific people, I myself will not believe unless I see an experiment and see the result of that experiment. We make an hypothesis and then we conduct an experiment. If the experiment proves that hypothesis, we say that our hypothesis was correct. If it is not, then we will say that our hypothesis was wrong. And we, in India, people, you see all these kind of various knowledge. So hypothesis is each one of us can get this capacity to know all that the scientists are trying to find. The nature of universe, the nature of life, where we were living before we were born, what happens when we die, all these kind of questions which scientists are trying to find out, we can find the answers to everything. This is the hypothesis. Now, what experiment do we do? The experiment is, we meditate. When we go deeper in meditation, all that knowledge of this three-dimensional world comes to us through our meditative state. Whether it was alphabet, decimal system, a knowledge of universe, everything comes to us in our meditative state. Now, let's do this experiment. Once we are able to meditate properly and we are not able to get these answers, we will say that our hypothesis was wrong. Is that acceptable? Okay, it's very scientific, very, very logical. Now, people are trying to meditate throughout their lives. It is not easy to meditate. But people who have meditated and they have given their wisdom to us is reflected in all these scriptures, Vedas and other things. As a scientist, as an engineer, I wanted to find out how can we explain this? How do we explain this? That meditation can give us all the knowledge. I didn't agree to this. After a lot of research, my son, who is about 26 years old now, he told me about this film called Flatland. And I saw this film and immediately I understood what is happening. And I want to show you clips of this film. And after you see this film, I hope you will have the answers yourself. Do we have a microphone with this? It is connected? Yeah, okay. So this Flatland is a book which was written in 1884, perhaps by a Polish writer. Flatland. In 2007, this animation film was made. This is an animation film made in 2007. Look at this film. Flatland is basically a land which is only in 2 dimensions. And one day, somebody from 3 dimensions comes into this world. Flatland film. Let's start.
You ready for your first sight recognition? And you are a hexagon. If you're too good to play with them, then go study in your room and stop talking nonsense.
I can't do anything right.
The boy must be going mad.
He isn't mad. How can you say that? He's just a little confused.
3 to the 3rd power has an obvious meaning.
Oh! Oh! What is that? A point?
No, a line.
It's a demon!
It's a circle.
I'm no demon. You were right the 3rd time. In a sense, I am a circle. A circle more perfect than any seen in Flatland.
Sir, forgive us, but how did you change your circumference? No circle I've heard of can do that. And how did you get in here?
By in here, do you mean flatland?
Flatland? You know, a woman I met yesterday called the world flatland.
Did she? Good for her. Madam, I have a message to deliver to your husband. If you wouldn't mind,
Are you really a circle? I mean a priest?
Lord.
Forgive me, sir. I must feel you. You have no angles, not a one. Are you a perfect circle?
Yes.
Two eyes! Disgusting! I'm going to
calm
vomit.
down, you silly little square. I am a more perfect being than you. I am a circle made up of circles.
He is disgusted because he has never seen anyone with two eyes. In the flatland, everybody has one eye. So he sees two eyes, he can't understand.
Space.
And he says,
Already in space?
What do you know of space?
Space is length and width.
No, there's a third dimension of length, width, and height.
Please, your circular lordship, what direction is this third dimension?
Up, down.
North and south?
Nothing of the kind. A direction in which you cannot look, because you have no eye in your side.
I have an eye. It's on my
you
northwest
do not
side.
have eye on your side. You need an inside eye to see the third dimension. Because with one eye, you cannot have a sense of the third dimension.
Or down.
This is what he's
Please,
saying.
sir, this is New Year's Eve. There were horrible riots yesterday. My only brother may be dead. I have family obligations. Really, this is just no time for jokes.
I didn't come to joke. I'm from the land of three dimensions. 3D.
Go to the next clip.
I looked down and saw the plane on which you
Go
live.
to the next clip.
Brightness a dimension?
Height is a dimension.
He says there is no way to
Length.
explain to you.
Only
He
a
doesn't
different
understand
direction.
what the third
In your
dimension
world,
is.
height
The
is
only
just
way is to pick him
Point
up
out this
and take him to
direction,
the third
otherwise leave
dimension.
me alone.
And when he goes to the
you,
third dimension,
flatland
then you
is
see
your
his reaction.
whole world. To me, it's a flat plane on
Go to the
top
next
of which you move around. You call me a circle. If our roles were reversed, how would you convince a jury?
I would have to show them. Directly show them.
Of course, action, not words. Listen, I can see from here your study. On the wall is a hidden safe, inside of which
because he is seeing from the top, he is seeing
glowing.
something kept in the other room, and he says, I can see that you have kept something hidden there. I can pick it up and give it to you. He goes up, goes to the room, picks it up and comes here.
Taking the glowing thingy. Whoops.
What? What?
It stopped glowing. Well, never mind. Here's your thingy. Notice, the door to the safe is closed. Ta-da! Get it? Me, Spaceland.
He says you are a skillful thief. That's it.
I look down
Next clip.
on you.
All that you've proven is that you're a skillful thief.
Never been done before. I suppose I'll have to do it.
Do what? Murder me? You've done everything else.
Nothing of the sort. It will be painful, and I could get into trouble. But I've got no choice if the gospel of three dimensions is to be revealed. Hang on, Apostle. 1, 2, 3. Out of Flatland we go!
I'm mad. I'm insane. What have you done to me?
Lifted you out of Flatland into reality. Steady. There. Can you stand? Rest on your bottom hairs for a moment.
What is this pressure? It's pushing me southward. My south hairs hurt.
Oh, that. You'll get used to that. That's just gravity. Something we all have to contend with in Spaceland. Nothing to worry about.
Now that I see you, all of you, you're so perfect. Your circularity is beyond circularity. Everywhere you're circular and divine and perfect. A divine ideal of loveliness and wisdom.
Feel free to worship me at any time. But first, let's take a look at where you've been.
Look, a Flatlander. You can see their insides. I see! I see!
I take it that my experiment worked. I hope my ends will justify my means. Care to see yourself?
Next one.
Myself? Huh?
And pause.
I saw it.
Pause.
I saw what happened.
He comes
I saw them
down.
arrested.
First of all, he sees the entire flat land, and he's amazed to see even the inside of his own people's body. He sees his entire land, as if he's seeing from, a different perspective. Now he comes down and he tells his brother, who is in the prison, that you see there is a third dimension. I can take you there and you can come out of the prison. His brother says, have you gone mad? What is third dimension? There's nothing called third dimension. I think we will stop that film now. So that is the gist, and this is exactly what Indian philosophy tells us. When you meditate, you get into another dimension, a higher dimension. Let's call it the fifth dimension. And from that fifth dimension, everything about this three-dimensional world is very easy to understand. You know about the whole thing. Now, once again, as a scientist, as an engineer, I wanted to find out whether there is a scientific evidence of this statement or not. And you will be surprised. I'll give you two examples. One is Einstein's general theory of relativity. How many of you have heard about this? Einstein's general theory of relativity, 1925. One of the postulates of the Einstein's general theory of relativity is that space-time curves under gravity. Space-time curves near gravity. That is how the black hole has been defined. That is how the whole cosmological concept of today's world is defined. Now, imagine a straight line. A straight line will remain a straight line till the time it makes a curve. The moment it makes a curve, it is actually in a two-dimensional plane. If you have a two-dimensional plane like this, this is a two-dimensional plane. It will remain in two dimension till the time it curves. And the moment it curves in the third dimension. Basically, it means if you have nth dimensional world and it curves, it has to curve in n plus 1th dimension. I don't know how many of you understand. If an nth dimension world curves, it has to curve in n plus 1th dimension. If Einstein says space-time, which has 4 dimensions, if it curves under the effect of gravity, it means it must be curving in the 5th dimension. Where else it can curve? And the physics and the mathematics of this 5th dimension is completely different. The second example, let's go back to the same flat land. In this flat land, suppose this is a shape where the people think that this is weighing 2 kgs, but the scientific people say that no, it should weigh 200 kg. What is the explanation? In our world today, the most modern astrophysicists tell us that there is 96% of all energy and mass available is invisible. It is only 4% is visible. And they call all the other energy as negative mass and negative energy. It is the same example. In a two-dimensional world, if people think that this should be 2 kg, but the scientific people say it is 200 kg, what is the explanation? The only explanation is that it is a two-dimensional reflection of something in the third dimension. What you see in the two-dimension, what you see in the third dimension is actually only a projection of something in a higher dimension. So basically what I mean to say, that there is, in my opinion, no doubt that there is something called a higher dimension where it is easy for each one of us to travel through meditation and get to know the entire knowledge which is relevant for this three-dimensional world. This is what the Indians did, and this is how they have given us all that information. What I am going to do now is to skip a large number of slides because I think I have overshot this time big way, and I'll come down to the modern sense of India, because modern India all this is basically telling you about various aspects of Indian excellence during the Middle Ages, much before it happened in Europe. And this is all based on archaeological finds, because in the West people do not understand anything which doesn't have any archaeological evidence. So this is what we have, but if we move to the modern science, whether we talk of avionics or space technology, India has got some real advantage and real achievements. One of them is the latest one, which you have all heard, that India was the first country to send its satellite to Mars in its first attempt. India was the 4th country to send a satellite to Mars, but all the other 3 could not send it in their first attempt. But the Indians could send the satellite to Mars in their first attempt. Maybe I can stop here and let you ask a few questions, because otherwise the slides will go on moving, and you can keep note of that. But I will stop here and I'll request if you have any questions. Thank you. Basically, if you do not have a question, it means that either you have not understood anything or everything was clear and you have no questions. But if you want to ask any question, even in Ukrainian language, we have an interpreter, he can give that question to me. Yoga, for example, is actually a way to train your body and mind for deeper meditation. All the effects of health related thing are basically side products.
I mean, you said...
Yeah, it's working, it's working.
Really?
You're too tall.
So you said that there are 30% of rich people in India. Is there an economical gap between social groups?
Huge gap. There is a huge gap between the rich and poor in India, because when I said 30% people are as rich as Europeans or Americans, 24% of people are still very, very poor. And all policies of government of India is aimed at removing this high level of poverty and bringing these poor people into the fold of middle class or rich class. So this is a constant struggle that government of India is engaged in.
Don't you think that using the beach side of country will improve the economy of the country?
Using what?
The beaches more for the touristic pleasure.
Touristic, you mean?
Yes.
No, India has a lot of touristic places as it is, and a lot of people from Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, everywhere, people come there. But they are just not enough. I mean, we need to do a lot more to bring so many people out of poverty. And government is doing a lot of things. Economic development is one part. Because if your country if your GDP increases by about 8% continuously for 5 years, your GDP doubles. It's a recurring formula. In 5 years, your GDP doubles. And this is what government of India is trying to do.
Okay? Thank you.
Good. Any other question? Yeah.
So, basically you mentioned that in the past a lot of scientific discoveries was made through the meditation. But why nowadays there are nothing else discovered by the meditation?
Yeah, good question. First of all, the practice of deeper meditation and Indian way of teaching was lost during the last 1,000 years, I would say, because Indians were subjugated by outside powers, and modern system of education came to India, and the older system of education was completely ruined. It is only now that people are rediscovering that old system of education. And don't worry, very soon you will get new things coming out of India, whether it is through the power of meditation, because through the power of meditation, the knowledge can be obtained, and the knowledge can be implemented in various three-dimensional objects, which was done even in the past in India. Because if you see the stories of Indian scriptures, people used to throw arrows with a chant of a mantra, of a hymn, and it used to create either fire or rain or things like that. Basically, through meditation, you can control nature. And when you control nature, you can produce anything out of nothing. And that system is what the scientists are aiming at now. You are getting more and more wireless, you are getting more and more connectionless. All this is basically examples of moving into a world where you can control nature. But it is impossible to control nature only being through the three-dimensional phase. Scientists will come to realize it very slowly, but it will happen.
So why did, in your opinion, they lost that knowledge?
Sorry?
Why did, in your opinion, they lost their knowledge?
Basically because it needs continuous practice. And unless you are in the deeper state of meditation, you cannot understand. And it is, oh, I forgot to tell you one thing. This knowledge cannot be passed on to anyone else. Just as in the Batman film, the person who went to the third dimension and realized what his world is all about, all that knowledge he got by being in the third dimension, he cannot tell this to anyone in his planet because nobody will understand it. You only need to be in the third dimension to understand what you have seen. That is why in Indian philosophy it says each one of us can have that knowledge, but it is impossible to give it to anyone else. Each one has to realize that knowledge himself or herself. It is impossible to translate that.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. I did say this exactly, but what do you, please continue. Okay, now I understand. The source is actually, when you say the source, you are saying basically in a three-dimensional term. And I am saying that this is beyond three dimension. When the scientists say that 96% of available energy and mass is invisible, tell me where it is. Exactly, which is nothing. It is here, which is nothing for a three-dimensional world. And I'll strongly recommend to you, type in YouTube, the universe is from nothing. Type this and read a lecture or see a lecture by a modern scientist called Robert Krauss, if I am not wrong. Robert Krauss. But you just type universe from nothing, and you will understand this exactly. I'm saying this from his lecture only. What he also says at the end of his 45 minutes lecture, that there is scientific proof that the world, the universe started from nothing, and one day it will collapse into nothing. And basically it means all that energy and mass that we see has actually an alternative. Maybe it is in the higher dimension. Maybe, I am saying maybe, and I feel that Indian philosophers have actually given us a direction to realize that. Yeah. Dimension, yes, fifth dimension. Okay. You understand, once again, the word understand, read, understand is very different from realization. Please understand. The person who went into the third dimension in the flatland film, whatever he knew from being in the third dimension is realization. That realization cannot be transferred to anyone in the flatland. Either his brother, his wife, his children, nobody can get that knowledge because it has come from realization. So please understand, there is a great difference between reading, understanding, knowing and realization. And that realization is the essence of Indian philosophy and Buddhist philosophy. It is not in any other philosophy. It is not in any other religion. But the whole basis of Indian religion, Indian philosophy, Buddhist religion, Buddhist philosophy is based on this realization, which I have explained to you through the film. The realization of being in the third dimension cannot be passed on to anyone else in the flat land. Okay. Thank you very much.
Was it something new?